It's the Buckeye Blitz. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Jeff Thitoff. Tito, they call me. This is on FanStream Sports, powered by DSP Media. You can follow me on Twitter, @FitHappens, the X, if you want to call it that. But lots to get into today. By the way, download the FanStream Sports app. It's free. Apple and Android users catch all of our around-the-clock programming that we have. So many great shows we're adding all the time. We have a Facebook group also, FanStream Sports Facebook group, and also the website, fanstreamsports.com. Check out everything there. So, let's take a step back first and look at what happened this past weekend. The Buckeyes defeated Michigan State 38-7, and it was another slow start for Ohio State as Michigan State moved the ball on them a little bit. Ohio State did struggle a little bit offensively with a turnover and whatnot, but it was a game where Ohio State, and it's been kind of the method they've been going with so far this year, where they have a slow start, make big-time adjustments in the second half, and then pulling away. For instance, and I saw this stat also on, I think it was on OhioStateBuckeyes.com, but on Michigan State's first 19 snaps of the game, Ohio State allowed 179 yards. So in Michigan State's first 19 snaps, they allowed 179 yards, but then in their final 31 snaps after that, only 67. So that was the adjustment Ohio State makes. If you go back and look at all the games since Jim Knowles has been here, and Ohio State makes great defensive adjustments. You've already seen it this year in the game against Marshall, in the game against Akron. It's a thing where it's going to come back to bite them at some point if they don't get it fixed. But I'm always into betting the Ohio State in the second half of games for the second half alone because of the adjustments they make defensively. So Michigan State's got a good defense, too. By the way, this might have been the best defense Ohio State's faced so far this year, and the Buckeyes gained almost 500 yards on them in offense. So it's a thing where I think you'll see it a lot this week. We'll talk more about the Iowa game here in just a moment, but you'll see that where Ohio State, they force teams to play from behind and get out of their game plans, and that's where Ohio State has a lot of success. Ohio State ranked third in the country right now. They come into the game obviously undefeated, and Iowa's got the one loss so far this season. They lost to Iowa State in a game they should have won. They lost by 1 point in that game. Iowa's offense, much improved, but we'll get to that in a moment. Anyway, in this Michigan State game, Will Howard threw for 244 yards. He was 21-31 passing, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. He also ran for a score. Howard got hurt at the end of the first half. Brown had to come in. Devin Brown threw a touchdown pass, another great play, a pass to Jeremiah Smith, and then he came in later on in the game, too. He finished 2 of 4 for 31 yards, plus that 1 touchdown. Julian Sain got some time as well. He went 3 of 5 for 23 yards. Running game, effective, but not used as often as much as it has been in the past. Travion Henderson led the team in rushing yards with 7 carries for 69 yards. Quinshon Judkins, 11 for 54. I love those stat lines. I know they're not sexy. I know they're not big numbers, 100 yards and all this stuff. Neither one found the end zone. But Henderson and Judkins, healthy, rested. They're not getting run into the ground, which is huge as we get later the part of the season. Emeka Egbuka had 7 catches, 96 yards and a touchdown. Jeremiah Smith had the 5 for 83 and a touchdown. He also ran for a score in the game, made a couple of great catches or one-handed catches. Jeremiah Smith is been amazing to this point, and this is where, as much as I know college players getting screwed because they have to stay in college for 3 years, now they're getting paid at least. Nonetheless, the fact that, because Jeremiah Smith is somebody who could truly be a one and done. He's that good. He will be that good at the next level. But the fact that the way the college football rules work, he's got to stay in college for 3 years before he can go pro. The defense, what do you think about the defense? Look, they forced 3 turnovers, and that's a positive thing for Ohio State if you look at what happened last year with turnovers. Ohio State last year, they forced 11 turnovers the entire season, 7 interceptions and 4 fumbles that they recovered. And Ohio State actually was minus in the turnover ratio last year. They also threw 7 interceptions. They had 6 lost fumbles over a total of 13. So Ohio State was -2 last year and only forced 11 turnovers. They've already forced 6 so far this year. So 3 interceptions, 3 fumble recoveries, and Ohio State is +3 there. So that's what I love about this team. It's got to happen this year with this team. They've got to be able to force turnovers. So now we got Iowa coming in for a 3:30 kick at the Horseshoe. Ever since Ryan Day got here, he is 43-0 against unranked teams. Iowa comes in unranked. He is 20-1 against teams from the Big Ten when playing here in Columbus, 20-2 in road games. Those losses, we know what they are, the 1 here and the 2 there. We know exactly where those took place. Iowa 3-1 overall, 1-0 coming in a game they should have won. They should 1-0 in the Big Ten. They should have won the game against Iowa State. This is the 67th time these teams have played, and Ohio State holds the 47 wins, 15 losses, 3 ties, and they took out the 2010 win in Iowa City, which we know they won, but it got vacated because of NCAA sanctions. Nonetheless, so it really is 48-15-3, but whatever. And Ohio State also is 31-9-1 against Iowa here in Columbus. So it's been a dominating series as of late. There are certain teams that I always get a little bit concerned when Ohio State plays them, but with Iowa, I'm a lot more concerned when it's in Iowa City. Not so much here in Columbus. In Iowa City, it's a different, like schools like Iowa, schools like Purdue when they're on the road in Penn State. Those kind of teams, they're teams that Ohio State is normally better than. Always better than. Always have more talent than those schools. But somehow they give Ohio State fits when Ohio State travels to their places. Indiana had a stretch in like the late 80s where they beat Ohio State 2 years in a row, which was shot. One of them, I think it was 31-7 in Columbus or some ridiculous number like that in the late 80s. John Cooper's first year, I believe. So Iowa's one of those teams that always gives me pause, but much more so when they're playing on Iowa at Iowa. So not as concerned right now. The last time they did play, by the way, Ohio State's won the last 8 times they played Iowa and Columbus, 14-16 overall. The last time Iowa won at the Horseshoe, 1991. They don't play every year, but 1991. The last time they played in Columbus, 2022, Ohio State won 54-10. And Ohio State dominated that game. C.J. Stroud had a big game, threw 4 touchdown passes. Travion Henderson had a big game. Not a big game, actually. He only 11 for 38, but Abuka scored. And Iowa only got like 158 yards of total offense. Kirk Ferentz is 2-9 against Ohio State coming into this. Both his wins, though, again, were in Iowa City. Ferentz has been there forever, taking over for Hayden Fry way back when. So in this game here, by the way, we'll go through some stats real quick for Iowa. Cade McNamara is the quarterback for the Hawkeyes. And he's the transfer from Michigan. Came to Iowa last year, got hurt, but he's completed 64 passes out of 102 attempts, 3 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, 588 yards. Caleb Johnson, the big rusher for them, 82 carries, 685, and 9 touchdowns. One of the receivers, those aren't astounding numbers by McNamara. Caleb Johnson is the key to that team. Luke Lachey plays for Iowa. He's a senior tight end. He's got 12 catches, 97 yards this year. Significant to him, he went to Grandview High School in Columbus, Grandview Heights, which is just a few miles away from the Horseshoe. His dad, Jim Lachey, calls games on 97.1 The Fan in Learfield for Ohio State, calls him on the radio. He obviously went to Ohio State, had a great career here, and then also ended up winning a Super Bowl with Washington in the NFL, had a decent NFL careers also. So, Ohio State is going to test Iowa's run defense. The Buckeyes are 14th in the country, even with kind of a mediocre performance. But I shouldn't say mediocre. The numbers weren't great because they didn't have to be against Michigan State. Nonetheless, Ohio State, 14th in the country in rushing yards. They've rushed for 227 yards on the ground per game. Iowa, though, is 4th in rushing yards allowed with 62 yards per game is all they're allowing. Iowa's not played a team like Ohio State yet. I think Ohio State will try to establish the run early and have success doing so. This is a typical Iowa team. They play really good defense. They try to control the ball on offense. But this is a different match for Iowa. Iowa's offense is all about Caleb Johnson, the running back. He's a senior running back for Cincinnati. He spoke a little bit this week about almost feeling slighted that Ohio State did not go after him very hard. He is 2nd in the country right now, averaging 171.3 yards per game. And that's their offense. And this is why it sets up poorly for Iowa, because Ohio State, much like against Michigan State can run the ball too before they played Ohio State. Michigan State was really good at it. But when Ohio State gets out to a big lead early, it's going to force Iowa to throw. If they get out to a lead, and Iowa's going to have to throw, and they're not a great throwing team. I know Cade McNamara. He's in college. He's 20-5 as a starter, and had success against Ohio State, obviously there. But he is one of those game manager types. He is not somebody that you want to have being forced to throw the ball with to catch up in a game. Against the 2 Power 4 teams they've played, he's only thrown for 161 yards total in those 2 games. That's what they do. They're going to run the ball and try to establish it that way and keep the ball. Ohio State, though, is going to do a great job against Iowa in this. They made adjustments against Michigan State. They run the 5-2 a lot of the time. They switch to a lot of 4-3 against Michigan State. They're going to do that again. If Michigan State had 186 total yards in the first half against Ohio State, and then only 60 in the second half. That's what they do. That's what the Buckeyes do, and they make great adjustments at the half. I want to see Ohio State, though, come out and establish some dominance early on against Iowa. Being in Columbus should help that out. It's a beautiful weather day. It's like 80 degrees, I think, on Saturday and sunny, so no excuses on that front. Ohio State comes in as a 19.5-point favorite in this one. Over-under is 44.5. I expect Ohio State to cover that 19.5-point spread. I see a 35 or 38-6 kind of game for them, and it'll be because Ohio State will make Iowa uncomfortable. They're going to be blitzing a lot, bringing a lot of pressure in on McNamara, make him throw the ball, and I think Ohio State also, so I like Ohio State laying the points. The over-under's tough. I think it could be right around that number. That's why I said 35 or 38-6, I think. I doubt Iowa gets into the end zone. And I think you'll see a multiple turnover game. Again, Ohio State will cause multiple turnovers. Probably, I'm guessing, a couple of picks from Cade McNamara. But it'll be a great win for Ohio State. Get to 2-0 in the Big Ten. All right, that's it for the Buckeye Blitz. Thank you so much for tuning in. Follow me on the X, @ThatHappens. Download the FanStream Sports app for Apple and Android users, totally free. Get all of our programming. So many great things going on all the time with FanStream Sports, powered by DSP Media. We'll talk again after the game, and go Bucks.